من كمني تنيثت حقوذا نطر الناموس دايموثا برقش مني خوثا
قديشاد مارني شمشيحة كرزوثا أدلقان
شوخا يمشيحة مارن آمين
Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that falls to me.' And he divided his living between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took his journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in loose living. And when he had spent everything, a great famine arose in that country, and he began to be in want. So he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have fed on the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' He arose and he came to his father. But while he was yet at a distance, his father saw him. He had compassion, and he ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'"
لا لها أميني شوخا
Good morning.
Good morning, Father.
Today is the last Sunday. Father Perrin is celebrating Masses with us here at St. George. You will be serving from next Sunday, actually from tomorrow at Mother of God Church. Many people ask me, how do I feel about it? Well, I'm happy and sad. I'm happy because the new position of Father Perrin, besides being a parochial vicar at Mother of God, he will be also the vocation director. The vocation director means everyone that enters the seminary will be filtered through Abuna Perrin. So I'm praying to God to see more priests like Abuna Perrin. That's why I'm joyous for the church. I'm happy for the church. The second reason I'm sad, the second thing I'm sad, why? Besides losing Abuna Perrin to the west side, Harama. It's okay, may khali. But he's no longer serving at St. George. As many of you know, Abuna Perrin is a phenomenal man, a great and an amazing priest that brought a lot of people back to Jesus, and for that I am very thankful. As pastor of this church, I am always in gratitude for your service at this parish. We always talked about it. Father Perrin and I always talked about it. It's just like a good family will always give us good priests. So not only you, Abuna parent, but also your family. And everyone who formed you to be the man you are. In 3 years, I promise you all, I've seen nothing but beautiful and amazing things. Christ has worked through Abuna parent for the parish. And I'm very happy for Mother of God. I'm very happy for the Westsiders. I'm very happy for everyone who is going to serve with Abuna parent at Mother of God. So as a simple thing of gratitude, St. George would like to offer you, to give you something to remember us with. Not like you're going to forget us. He promised me, Abuna parent is a very great organizer. When it comes to decor and stuff, he's number one. He's coming back in Christmas to organize everything here. That's his promise. But, so something on behalf of St. George, we are offering you a chalice and a paten, actually, and we wrote in the back, from St. George Parish, we love you. So every time you celebrate Mass, Abuna, please remember us. And may God bless you, and you're always my brother, and I love you from all my heart. And in these 3 years, I gained a brother and I gained a priest. Now we have connections now at Mother of God, which is great too. God bless you all.
I love you. Thank you, Abuna. I'm blessed, honestly. You're going to make me cry now. God's love is so amazing, my brothers and sisters, and that's really what I want to preach about today. So I'm really thankful for Abuna Fawaz, for Abuna Kevin, for this beautiful church, and just for everything that God has done here for me in these past 3 years. They always say that the first assignment of a priest is the most important assignment. Where he is first in his first years of priesthood are the most important. And I think I've received just so much from just being here, and I feel set for the rest of my life because of everything that I've received, everything that I've learned, whether it was from Abuna Fawaz, Abuna Kevin, our servers, choir, parish council, our volunteers, just receiving so much. And so I think that it's funny because this gospel of the Prodigal Son was actually the first gospel I ever preached here at St. George. And so now on this last Sunday that I'm here, it comes back. And I was looking at my past homilies. I used to save my homilies, and then I started going off script, and it's a mess at that point. But I was looking back at what I preached on over the last couple of years, and today, something struck me differently than the past couple years when I was reading this gospel this week. And it was specifically just the love of God the Father, and how amazing his love is. When we think about this story, a son comes to his father, the younger son, and says, I want my inheritance. Imagine if someone did that to you. Imagine if one of your kids said, give me my share. Just give me my share. It's like pretty much saying, I wish you were dead. Because you don't get an inheritance unless someone dies, unless someone passes away. And that's what this younger son was doing. He was saying, Dad, I just wish that you were dead. I want my money now. I want my share now. And what does he do? We hear in the gospel, Jesus tells us that he goes out, he lives a very loose life, a very sinful life in a very far country, and then eventually he starves. He becomes poor. He spends all of his money. And he decides to go back to his father just to ask if he can be one of his servants. Not to be one of his sons, just to be one of his servants. And he goes back to his father. And I think there are 3 things that have been really striking me about the Father in this gospel, which are his love, his mercy, and his joy. His love, his mercy, his joy. The first thing is his love. He's sitting down and he's looking, and the father sees his son coming towards him. He's at a distance, he's very far away. He sees his son coming towards him. The father doesn't wait. The father gets up, he runs to his son, he embraces his son, and then he kisses him. I just think about that. I've been praying with that scene all week. How the father runs to him, he embraces him, and he kisses him. It really shows the great love of this father. And then his mercy. His mercy. His son comes and says, Father, I've sinned against you. I've sinned against heaven and earth. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Hire me as one of your servants. I think a normal Chaldean dad, if he forgave his son, would say, okay, I forgive you, yalla, get back to work, right? Go back to work. But the father doesn't even say anything. The father doesn't even say a word. He just says, bring the best robe, bring a ring, bring shoes, and clothe him. Let's kill the fatted calf, and let's rejoice. Let's party, because my son is back. My son was lost, and he's found, and he's here. And so they made him quzi, and they had a hafla. Now, what a beautiful scene. That he doesn't just forgive his son, but he throws him a party, and he clothes him, and he gives him expensive jewelry, because he's back. He's been found. And that leads to this. The third part is his joy. The father's joy. The father's great joy in his son. Jesus is telling us this story, my brothers and sisters, because he's trying to show us who God is. These are all attributes of God. God is a God of love. God is a God of mercy. God is a God of joy. That's what he is. But I think our issue is we don't see God in that way. We actually struggle seeing God in that way. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of us have wounds, a lot of us have a lot of hurt, specifically from our parents. This is psychological. We look at God and we relate to God the way we relate to our father or even our mother. And I think the issue as to why we can't see God as loving and merciful and joyful is because in reality, my brothers and sisters, and especially in our community, a lot of fathers were not present to their kids, were not around for their kids, and a lot of mothers were too critical and constantly picking at every single fault of their child. You know, you hear us preach a lot about fathers, but sometimes mothers are very much worse than the father when it comes to constantly picking at the faults. Oh, you're never going to get married. Look how fat you are. Look how big you are. I've literally seen kids, witnessed kids in depression because their parents yelled at them because they didn't get all A's. They got a B. God forbid someone gets a B. Just because you get all A's in high school, it doesn't stop you from becoming a pothead in college. All A's literally mean nothing unless I know that God is a God of love, God is a God of mercy, God is a God of joy. And so a lot of times we have these wounds from our parents. And so this is really for our parents to understand that before picking at everything, we need to teach our children who God is. We need to teach them who he is. And they're going to learn who God is by who you are as a father, by who you are as a mother. That's how they're going to learn. Another thing in the gospel as to an issue as to why we can't see God as loving and merciful and joyful is literally what the younger son says. He recognizes his sin. He recognizes that he messed up. And what does he say? I'm going to go to my father and I'm going to tell him to hire me as his servant because I'm no longer worthy to be his son. Sometimes we feel like we're no longer worthy. Whether it's our sin, whatever we've messed up with, whatever we've done, we feel like we're just no longer worthy. Think about how many people, when they're in mortal sin, when we've committed some big sin, we don't go to church. I don't want to go to church because I can't receive the Eucharist. I can't receive Qurbana. And because I'm in sin, so I'm just going to wait till I go to confession and then I'll go to church because I'm not worthy right now. You know what we do when we live like that? We're allowing the devil to win. We already allowed the devil to win once by tempting us to fall into sin. Why should I allow the devil to keep me away from God? The church is not meant for perfect people. The church is meant for sinners. The church is meant for people who are needy, for people who are sick. And so if we feel like we're not worthy, don't allow the devil to keep us away. God is this God of love, of mercy, of joy. And so we need to come back to Him. We need to come back to the Lord. Sometimes we think God is just this angry God, this condemning God, this God who is not present, this God who doesn't really love me, this God who doesn't understand me. But the truth is, there's no one who understands us more than God. There's no one who loves us more than God. You've heard me in these last years preach about the two greatest gifts, and I constantly preach about this: the Eucharist and confession. The Eucharist and confession. If my life is not surrounded around the Eucharist and confession, then my life is going to be miserable, dry, broken, depressing. There are so many gifts that the Lord has for us, whether it's in the Mass, in adoration, or simply when I come to confession and confess my sins. I'm going to call out my dad right now. My dad hadn't been to confession in 23 years. Thankfully, to all the holy prayers of my mom, he finally went to confession. After 23 years, he went to confession. And I'll never forget the time that he called me after he went to confession. He called me and he said, "Perrin, the feeling that I have right now, I've never had in my life. The peace that I'm feeling right now, I've never had in my life. We need to go to confession." My dad won't let me hear his confession. That's fine, okay? But we need to go to confession. It's such a powerful experience to sit before the priest and to confess our sins to God through the priest. We need to come to Mass. We need to receive the Eucharist, because when I'm not doing that, I'm starving myself. I'm empty. I'm not filled. One of the things that I prayed for before I was a priest was, Lord, I want to be a holy priest, I want to be a humble priest, and I want to be a happy priest. That's what I want to be. And I think that that's not just for priests. We are all called to that, my brothers and sisters, to be holy, humble, and happy. That's what we're called to. Holy, to love God. Humble, to be merciful. And happy, to be joyful. That's what we're called to. And we cannot do that unless we love God and unless we receive love from Him first. I want to close with this. You know, one of my missions, as Abuna Fawaz said, as I leave this parish, is as vocations director. So to pray with and to work with men and women who are desiring to enter the priesthood or religious life. And we're in great need of that. We could build more churches. I mean, look at this church right now. We can build more churches in our diocese, in our community here. But we cannot do that unless we have more priests and more nuns. I am so humbled and honored to be a part of this work, honestly. And it's something that I've always desired to do because I love being a priest. One of the things I've said to you before is I felt called to the priesthood since I was 6 years old. Since I was 6, I wanted to become a priest. And God made that a reality. God made that real for me. And so I knew when I was in seminary, I knew that I would love being a priest. I knew I would love it with all of my heart, but I never thought my life would be this beautiful. I never thought my life would be this beautiful. I never thought my priesthood would be this amazing. And it's because of this church, and it's because of people like you. Our community is so blessed. Our community is amazing. That even Khware are coming to this church, okay? Because there's something special happening in the Chaldean church. There's something amazing happening in our church. The Holy Spirit is working, God is alive, and there's so much good taking place. And so I want to say that if you're feeling called to be a priest or a nun, even if it's just a little bit, I want you to pursue it, to pray about it, to think about it, to reach out to me if that's where you feel called. Because it's an amazing life and it's a beautiful life. And as a priest and a nun, God constantly takes care of us. He does. Because we are special to Him. We are set apart with Him. And I've never not felt taken care of by God. God has taken care of me my entire life, my entire priesthood. And it's proof because He's given me you. And He's given me this church. And this place has changed my life for the rest of my life. So my brothers and sisters, in this Mass, I want us to pray to experience God's love, to experience His mercy, to experience His joy, because that's what He desires for us every time we come to Mass. Amen.